My mother often did not sleep in my father's room. If I ever slept in Dad's room, the next morning Mom would come out crying. One day Mom was sleeping, then I took her blanket and went to Dad's room. Then what did Dad do to me? Thinking I was Mom will surprise you. When I opened my eyes, I saw my mom crying. She was sitting near my bed crying a lot. It always hurt my heart to see my mother like that, but I could never ask her anything. Often in the morning Mom was in that condition. A while ago I asked Mom why she cried so much and came out of Dad's room every morning, but Mom didn't answer and scolded me every time Mom came out of her room. She looked very strange. Her hair was disheveled in old clothes. She seemed to convey a strange compulsion. All this had started a few years ago, and as I was becoming aware, everything became more and more surprising to me. A passion was born in me for what my father did with my mother all night. This question disturbed me. Now I was 15 years old, and I began to understand many things well. By seeing my mother's crying face, I felt a warning of some kind of helplessness, but the surprising thing was that when Mom came out of the room she was crying, and when Dad came out of the room there was a lovely smile on her face. She looked very young and kept humming something as if she was very happy, and Mom's state was such that after coming out of Dad's room she was even afraid to walk past him again. I used to send him breakfast to his room in my hands. He would stay in the kitchen all the time and keep crying or lock himself in the bathroom. Seeing Mom's state, I felt so sorry for him. I used to study in the 10th class. After giving breakfast he used to leave home to go to school, but thoughts of Mom haunted me all the time. I have never seen my father worried or restless in the morning. He would always sit down to have breakfast with much joy, and his face looked very happy looking at Mom. It seems like anything could happen to her at any moment. Many times I had seen Mom tremble while preparing breakfast. My heart wanted him to ask Mom, what does Dad do with her at night that makes her so miserable? But on mentioning Dad's name, fear would appear on Mom's face. Mom wouldn't go to sleep in Dad's room every night she slept with me. Instead, sometimes Dad would take Mom with him forcefully to the room, and Mom would try to resist, but Dad wouldn't listen to Dad's voice. He had such a sweet love that anyone who saw her would be shocked, but I knew well that Dad would do something wrong if Mom was in the room. It's very difficult to see mother cry and suffer for any child, and the same happened to me. I couldn't concentrate on my studies, neither did I feel comfortable at home. My heart wanted him not to let my mother go to Dad's room in any way, but I couldn't persuade Dad in any way. Dad used to come very lovingly in front of me with Mom. The atmosphere of the house had disturbed me so much that I failed miserably in the midterm exam. I didn't tell Mom and Dad about the result, but my friend was shocked because I was very good in studies. She started asking me repeatedly where was my focus. I told her about Mom and Dad. Your dad watches movies in English, she asked about. Suddenly Saloni looked at her confused. I couldn't understand what the purpose of the English movie was, and she was looking at me with a different perspective. She changed the subject, but my thoughts were stuck on her words. After all, why? Saloni asked this question when I returned home. The cousin's brother, my mom Arian's uncle, was sitting with my mom. He used to come to our house in the evenings. He and Mom have been good friends since childhood. Mom used to tell me that they lived together in their childhood. Then Arian's uncle left for Dubai. My mom got married to Dad. Mom's marriage had been 17 years ago, and I was their only daughter. Maybe everything was fine a few years ago, or maybe I was just young and naive. Over the past few years I have come to understand my mother's situation very well. I knew that my father was not a good man. He was the reason for my mother's suffering, and this very thing had created enmity in my heart towards my father. My Aryan uncle had very good friendship with my mom. He came back to India just a year ago, and he used to come to see Mom frequently, but Mom did not like them to come after Aryan's uncle left. Mom often tells me that if my dad came to know that Deo came to meet us, it would be very bad. Let us make sure he also brings a lot of things for me, because Dad's income was so low that even making ends meet was difficult. Mom lived her life with such a cruel man like that. I don't know how at night I would arrange my mom in Mom's bed and sleep with her. After a while Dad came into my room. Mom was lying beside me sleeping. When Dad asked her to join him, Mom refused in a low voice. I didn't open my eyes. I wanted to hear what Dad was saying to Mom. Come on, criticize, I won't bother you at all. Dad's voice that had the sweetness of love reached my ears. I don't want to go with you. You should think that now our daughter has grown up she has started to question and think, but you don't care. Mom replied to Dad in a low voice. Dad forcefully grabbed Mom's hand and took her with him. I started to feel strange and anxious. I didn't know what Dad used to do with Mom, and the talk about Saloni's English movie also stuck in my head. 2 hours had passed, but Mom didn't come back. I went to the kitchen to drink water. Mom followed me soon after. I looked deeply at Mom, whose hair was disheveled. What shocked me was that the dream of a suit was also torn. Mom realized that I noticed her condition, quickly wrapped her paw around her. She was wearing the right outfit in front of me earlier in the morning, but suddenly how did her dream change? Mom asked me why I was awake at this late hour. I made up a false excuse saying that I also came to drink water. Mom came back with me to my room. I closed my eyes to sleep, but I could hear Mom's sighs. My heart wanted to comfort her and bring to my tongue all the questions that were on my mind, but I remained silent. Dad had left the room in the morning fully prepared like a young man. Dad's income was low, but he was always happy, smiling, and went to work prepared like a rich man. I looked at my dad with a feeling of hatred that I still feel today. I left for school after having breakfast in front of Dad all day. Even at school my mind was on Mom's stone dream. On my way back from school I met Arian's uncle. As soon as he saw me he took me to his car. Without thinking I sat in his car without hesitation. Arian's uncle looked at me intently and started asking me what was bothering me. Why do you seem so lost? I was so excited that I told everything to Arian uncle. After listening to me, Arian uncle said, you have an idea that your father is not a good person. Why don't you free your mother from your father? How long will both of you continue to pester each other amidst their harassment? Arian uncle advised me with great concern, which shocked me. I couldn't even think of leaving my dad. My dad had never spoken to me out loud, so how could I call him cruel? I didn't even know what was going on behind closed doors between my mom and dad. After listening to Arian uncle's words I was lost in my thoughts. Despite thinking a lot I couldn't remember anything that would label my dad as cruel, but my mom's pain and tears were proving that my dad was cruel. Uncle Arian took me home from school and came in himself. Mom was happy to see both of us and immediately made us food. I was very tired, so I went to my room to sleep, and Uncle Arian stayed with Mom. I couldn't sleep, and I kept thinking about Uncle Arian's words all the time. Mom hadn't gone to Dad's room for 3 days, and for the past 3 days she had been sleeping in my room with me. When Mom was with me she was always good and carefree. Dad's behavior was always the same. The day he took Mom to her room she felt happier than usual. On the 4th day Dad took Mom back to her room, and I kept tossing and turning in bed all night anxiously. When Mom came out of Dad's room in the morning she couldn't walk properly. She dragged her feet on the floor and walked with great difficulty. I asked Mom what had happened to her feet, and she told me, don't pay attention to small things and focus on your studies. If your results in 10th grade are not good your dad will hold me responsible for it. Tears started rolling down Mom's eyes. She went to make breakfast for Dad and didn't come out of the kitchen again. After giving Mom breakfast I went to Dad's room. When I gave him breakfast Dad started asking me about my studies. There was so much sweetness in Dad's tone that I was shocked by his deceitful nature. He never seemed like a cruel person in any way, but Mom's state told the story of his tyranny. I told him that I couldn't sleep without Mom and that he shouldn't call her to her room at night. Hearing me Dad started smiling and said, sometimes I call your mother to my room too. I have a right to her and I love her very much. Hearing Dad's words my blood boiled because I had seen his love for Mom every day, but I couldn't say anything to Dad. Then I went to school in silence. The school teacher was telling us that we should never decide without knowing the whole truth. The truths are always very dangerous and can destroy a person. The teacher's words had opened another window in my mind. I decided that I would know the whole truth about my father and then I would free my mother from him. The Uncle Ario had promised to help me whenever I needed it. My mother looked just like me. I was 15, but I looked like my mother because of my genes. The next night I gave my mother a sleeping pill and covered myself with a blanket before sneaking into Dad's room. There was a small light bulb on in Dad's room. Because of the darkness Dad thought I was my mother because he couldn't see properly. I'm lucky that Critique came to my room alone today. Dad came up to me very happy. He helped me by the shoulders and sat me down next to him. My body was shaking sitting next to him. I didn't know what was going to happen to me next, but today I wanted to know the whole truth. Dad started watching with love. Critique, our daughter is growing up, and by saying this you have distanced yourself so much from me that I have to forcefully call you to my room too. I have some rights over you. I think my daughter is growing up, but she is not so young that she doesn't understand that her parents live together in the same room. You get tired after working all day, come sleep peacefully with me. I feel happy to have you around. Amen. Dad couldn't see my face because of the darkness, so he himself put me on his pillow and slowly started talking to me close to my ear. He was saying that he had saved some money from his income which he would use to get me married after that. What he said made me lose consciousness. He said, I know Arian has seen the way to our house again, but he criticizes. Let me tell you, he is not a good person and his intentions are not good either. He tried to ruin you once, and now we also have a little daughter at home, so we need to be careful. Dad, he still didn't know that I am not his wife, but his daughter. Dad was running his hand through my hair very gently, and after a while he fell asleep. I stayed beside him silently for a long time, but he was sound asleep. I quickly got up and left the room. Dad hadn't done anything that made sense to me, so I had a lot of questions in my heart about Arian's uncle and Mom. The next morning was like any other day, and his face looked like he spent the night with Mom. I was silently assessing him, but I didn't see any change in his behavior. When I came back from school, Arian's uncle's car was parked outside the house. He always used to come into the house waving from a distance, but today I snuck into the House like a thief. Mom and Aryan uncle were sitting together in my room and talking without noticing she noticed my presence. What I heard with my ears shocked me. I couldn't even imagine that the truth I was desperate to know was so terrible. Mom was laughing and telling Uncle Aryan that I had planted the seed of total hatred against her father in my doll's heart, and now the day is not far when my daughter will stand against her father. That old man has forced me into this relationship, but now I want freedom. He takes me to his room and falls asleep while talking to me, but as soon as I leave he ruins my situation. I have implanted the idea in the doll's heart that her father is committing a crime against me. One day, I even myself tore the sleeve of my suit. I want my daughter to become my shield. When I tell that old man about my freedom, and I don't have to leave my doll in his house, my daughter will tell the world the story of my innocence before her father's cruelty. And I will be a part of your life with the doll. Uncle Aryan laughed and said, yes, I have also told your daughter that whenever she needs my help I will go. My mother started telling her to my Aryan uncle not to betray me like the first time once before you left me midway and left. At that moment my husband forgave me and accepted me back. Aryan uncle took my mother's hand and said, I had left your hand powerless because my family members were completely against the idea of me having a relationship with a married woman, but now there is no one to stop me. I will adopt you and your daughter wholeheartedly. Just don't let Guria know the truth. Her father is not cruel, but we want to prove that he is cruel. Guria is the only one who can bring us together. My mother and my Aryan uncle were convinced that everything would happen as they had planned. They were both tired of laughing and the ground had slipped from under my feet. My mother was not only betraying me, but also my father. Sitting in my father's house with another man and talking about new relationships, I remembered what Dad had said before. I knew a lot about that, and Aryan uncle saw me. They were shocked, but they regained control. After a while Aryan uncle offered me a chocolate. I looked at Mom's face and asked her sternly what exactly was her problem with Dad. Mom had already realized that her lie had been exposed, so without hesitation she told me the whole truth. Mom loved her uncle before she got married, but her Uncle Aryan went to work in Dubai instead of marrying her. The childhood love did not fade away, and the color of Uncle Aryan's love remained rooted in Mom's heart. Mom's relatives liked it that for her mom was young and beautiful while Dad was 10 years older and dark-skinned. Although Uncle Aryan was handsome, Mom's relationship with Dad was the family's choice, and she married him under pressure from her family. However, she really accepted Dad wholeheartedly. This forced relationship was like a burden for Mom, but somehow she managed to move on. That's why just a year after getting married I came to Mom's lap. 8 years after Mom's marriage, Uncle Aryan came back from Dubai to spend a few days, and seeing Mom again, it ignited her feelings. Mom, also driven by love and emotions from her childhood, started meeting Uncle Aryan secretly, but within a few days Uncle Aryan's mother came to know about this and started tarnishing my mother's reputation in the whole family. My father truly loved my mother, so he saved her from being insulted and proved all these accusations to be false. When my father supported my mother, the whole family was left alone in silence. My mother couldn't reach my maternal grandfather's hands. She was strict with my Uncle Aryan and sent him back forcefully. The passion of love had turned into a war which Uncle Aryan had revived a few years ago. My uncle came to India permanently, and once again he went crazy behind my mother. Mom never liked my father from day one. Our circumstances were not special either. While Aryan uncle had money from Dubai, and leaving Dad for my mother was not difficult, but the problem was that Dad also loved me a lot and my mother could not live without me either. So my mother intentionally created this whole game and proved me that Dad was wrong. Mom wanted to take me with her by gaining sympathy, so she made Dad a villain in front of me and started living herself as a victim. For many years I had been thinking that my father never spoke to us loudly, so how could I commit such atrocity on my mother in a closed room? I clearly told my mother that if she wanted to go to Aryan house she could go, but I could not leave my innocent and loyal father. Aryan uncle, who had already abandoned my mother twice before, was sitting there and waiting for a third time. I saw in my Aryan uncle's eyes for the first time that he had only one and only wish, and I knew that after fulfilling that wish my mother would be of no use to him. My mother forced me to accompany her by showing me bright dreams of the future and leaving my father behind, but it was not easy for me to leave my father, and for me my father was all. If I had not seen the whole truth in front of me I might have made a wrong decision, but thank God I had seen it all with my own eyes and heard it with my ears. However, Mom was willing to go with Uncle Aryan, but when Uncle Aryan saw that I would not be under his control in any way and would not go with Mom once again, he separated his path from Mom and left her behind. Mom realized that Uncle Aryan was not using her for himself, but was trying to take advantage of a family situation for my sake. He was a very intelligent and cunning person. He had thought of using my mother's love for his benefit when Mom realized that she was about to cause a great loss by getting carried away by emotions if Mom and I had gone with him. He would have ruined my dignity just like her mother had tried to destroy Mom's dignity. We don't know what good deed he pulled mother and daughter out of Uncle Arian's clutches. When Dad came home at night, Mom herself would order food for him and even put his bed in Dad's room. Dad was happy to see this. Dad loved Mom, and it was her love that I had always overlooked. Mom's mystique. For the first time in so many years, Mom realized her mistakes and embraced Dad with her heart. The next morning Dad and Mom came out of the room smiling, and I felt a sense of relief in my heart. Sometimes we deceive ourselves in the name of love to such an extent that we are not worthy of showing our face before any nerves. True love happens only after marriage, where one person becomes a shield for the other and accepts each other's flaws. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Feel free to leave a comment below with your thoughts or suggestions for future videos, and remember to turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Until next time, take care and stay tuned for more interesting content.